My name is Vivian Tobias. I'm pretty sure that I'm 17 right now, but I'm not even sure anymore. I've been trying to get out of this place for almost as long as we've been here. My close friend me and I have been stuck in this place for at least a couple of years by now. I don't know. There might as well be no time here at all. Just let me explain. We had been friends since we were 7. I was heavily interested in the paranormal. Mia never believed any of it, but she had always joined me in my folly attempts at ghost hunting. Of course, she would make the occasional snarky comment, but she was by my side through everything. We were there for one another, and now, we're all that we have for each other. Now for how we got here. As I mentioned earlier, I've always had an investment in the paranormal, and I never gave up on searching for proof of its existence. I have it now, but I can't bring it to anyone. As I grew, I got more and more desperate to find evidence of supernatural things, moving from chanting in the middle of the night to things like seances, sacrificing objects important to me. I noticed Mia was growing more uncomfortable with my dedication to this hobby, but she stood by me, even if reluctantly. These activities grew in intensity until one day in 9th grade. On that day, I had been looking into rumors and urban legends about the bridge on the street downtown. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it was the talk of the school. The rumors said that if you brought a candle and something that means a lot to you to the tiny island under the bridge and say a certain phrase, something would take you. I know it's just playful, childish ghost stories, but nobody at school had the balls to do it. And at this point, I was so desperate, I was willing to possibly give up my life just to be sure that there's something out there. Mia didn't believe a bit of it, but she had always been supportive of me and wasn't about to change that. We had bought a little raft to float us to the island the day before. That day, school had just ended. I lived in a small town, so the school only had a couple hundred students. Everybody walked home, and Mia and I were no different. We took the same route every day. After a few turns, Mia and I split up. She took her own path home, and I took mine. Today, however, we both went to my house. Mom didn't mind having Mia over, so she had no issue letting her hang out for a bit. In my room, we searched through my stuff to find something that meant a lot to us. After about 15 minutes of searching, we decided on an old, crappy crayon drawing I made of the two of us holding hands. It was an awful drawing, but we were 8 when I made it, so it meant the world to us and our friendship. Mia picked up the drawing. "Are you sure you're ready to get rid of this?" I nodded. Mia let out a heavy sigh. "If you say so," she muttered. While Mom didn't mind Mia being over, she wouldn't stand for me leaving without an adult to keep us company. Our minds struggled on what to do, but we ended up telling her that Mr. Lawless, Mia's dad, would be going with us. It took her a second, but eventually she agreed to let us go out. Mia and I had been dating since 8th grade. Our families always supported us, and I'm super grateful to have had them. I gave Mom a hug, and we left the house. Inflatable raft, candle, and crayon drawing in my bag. We followed the map on Mia's phone to the bridge. We stopped by a fast food restaurant on the way to discuss what might happen if the legends are true. This was part of routine whenever we would go out to search for supernatural phenomena. The conversation went kind of like this. We had placed our orders, and Mia looked right at me. "Are you sure this is gonna work? This is what, your 50th attempt at finding something?" Looking out the window, I murmured back, "I know something's out there. If I stop now, all I've done in life will have never been worth it." The waiter passed us our drinks. Mia gave him a passing thank you before she continued. "I know you're not the type to back down, but..." Mia sucked in her teeth. "I think it might be time to take a hint." I laughed out my nose. Look, if this doesn't work, I'll stop this whole ghost hunting thing, like, if that's what you want. Mia put both her hands on mine. Listen, I don't want you to stop this. It's your passion, and I respect that. But maybe you could, I don't know, this whole thing. It's Bloody Mary all over again. Everyone was all about it in 4th grade, but it's just another urban legend. I chuckled again. Look, we'll try this one, and if it doesn't work, we'll just, try something else. Mia shrugged. Alright, she said. We didn't say another word until we left the restaurant. We made some passing comments about the food as we moved closer to the bridge. Alright, Mia spoke. We're here. She pocketed her phone and looked down the valley and into the lake below. Eventually, we could make out the shape of the island. There's one thing that I forgot to mention about the legend. The ritual had to be carried out in the middle of the night. Mia and I both had location permissions turned off on our phones, so our parents couldn't come pick us up if they got worried. It's a stupid idea, I know, but we were still teenagers. I mean, we still are, but we were dumb teenagers. We hung out for a while near the bridge, talking, scrolling through social media, things like that. I made sure to bring portable chargers in my bag because I knew we were going to be here for a while. Once our clocks read 11:30, we sprung into action. In preparation, we blew up the raft and started taking things off us that we wouldn't want to lose in the case of us falling into the water. Mia put her phone under my bag by the shore, but I kept mine because I was pretty confident in our raft. Once midnight struck, we paddled our way to the island. Eventually, we didn't have to paddle, as the raft had gotten enough momentum to carry us all the way. Mia got out the drawing and sighed. I guess we're really doing this, huh? I rested my elbows on the sides of the raft. I guess so. We were silent until we reached the island. I stepped out and Mia followed me. I took a lighter out of my pocket and I lit the candle, holding it above us. Mia took out the drawing, holding it by the candle, almost burning it early. I exhaled. Count of 3? I asked Mia. She nodded. I counted down and we both spoke. It was a fairly childish chant, something that you would more expect from 5th graders rather than 15-year-olds. We began speaking in jumbled unison. Realm of the cursed, give us refuge. In your walls we shall be safe. Cursed one, give us the solace that we beg of you. We moved the drawing and the candle together, and the paper began to burn. As the paper crumbled into ash, I blew out the candle and we both waited in anticipation. The sounds of cars passing overhead sent spine-chilling rumbles all around us. So, that's it then? Mia said after a few eternities of waiting. It's gone. I looked around us. Something's gotta happen now, right? I thought out loud. We looked into each other's eyes once more, and I blacked out. The sound of rushing waves began to fill my ears. I felt my chest being repeatedly pushed down. Suddenly, water rushed out of my throat, sending me upright, coughing violently. My eyes stayed shut as I wiped at my mouth. A hand touched my face before I felt 2 arms wrap around me. Oh, thank God, I heard Mia's voice say. I thought I lost you. I managed to get my eyes open. I returned Mia's embrace and I rather felt her start to sob. As we held each other, I got a look around. It was daytime, under the same bridge that we had originally gone under to do this whole thing. But something was different though. The atmosphere seemed more yellowed. Everything else was exactly the same, but this place had a totally different energy. I patted Mia's shoulder twice and we stood. Mia exhaled a sigh of relief. We should probably head home, I nodded, anticipating the hour-long lecture Mom would give me. We trudged up the valley, and we saw that both my bag and Mia's phone were by the bush that we had left them next to. Makes sense. This wasn't a very bad neighborhood, but I should have known that there would be a couple bad apples looking for an easy heist. Mia didn't take the loss of her phone too lightly. After a couple of punches on the ground, she rose back to her feet. I assured her that we would find it eventually. We began up the valley. It was steep as heck, and I had to take a few billion breaks to catch my breath. And when we finally reached the top, I got a better look around. The roads were completely empty, not a car in sight. This was to be expected of our town, but at the time, it was extremely strange to me. When we reached the more populated parts of the neighborhood, it got even more strange. Everything looked the same, but everybody was gone. Not a person on the streets. Mia nabbed me by the wrist and ran over to her house. We continued to see nobody on the way there. Just the empty streets painted over in a sepia tone. More than all the other houses, Mia's house looked battered and wrecked, like a tornado had blown through. Mia attempted to open the door. It swung open. It was unlocked. Nobody in Mia's house ever left the door unlocked. The house was just as it was when Mia left it. However, there was no evidence of Mia ever living there. Everything else was intact. Family photos, things like that. But there was no indication that Mia had ever set foot in this house. I could tell from her face. I felt the same way. It was so bizarre having not a trace of your presence preserved. Okay, I admitted. This has gone on too long. We need to get back home. Mia agreed and she opened the door, and immediately snapped it shut, putting her back against the door facing me. Her eyes were opened wide, and she was breathing incredibly quickly for someone of her calm nature. Mia always was a fighter. There was just about nothing that scared her, so seeing her like this, it meant something. What? What is it? Mia only looked at me for a few seconds before closing her eyes and shaking her head. Nope. Mia put her head in her hands, sliding down to the floor. This isn't real. It's not real. Any second, I'm gonna wake up. This isn't real. Anger started to grow in her voice. She slammed her fist against the carpeted floor. This isn't real. I felt a disturbance in the atmosphere around us, a ripple of sorts. A tingle rushed through my bones as a dark premonition hit me. I grabbed Mia's shoulders. We need to hide now. We rushedly scanned the room for somewhere to stay. After a couple of seconds, we chose the wardrobe. Clever, right? Shut up, we were 15 at the time. As we sat in the closet, cowering for our lives, we heard the front door begin to turn. I looked at Mia. She was always unreasonably calm in situations of danger, but here you could see the panic in her posture. Her knees were up to her chest and her eyes were squeezed shut, almost appearing to be in anticipation. As we heard the front door pry open, I watched Mia force herself to relax her breath. I tried to do the same, but every inch of me was shaking. The closet door had little slits in it, allowing me to get a decent look into the living room. I really wished that I had never peeked out there, but I couldn't stop myself. It appeared to be silhouetted against the light that the windows let in, but I could make out a few features. It was huge. It almost had to kneel to avoid scraping its head on the ceiling. One arm appeared to be ripped off, ending in a brutal stump, with chunks taken out and what looked like a few veins dried out and stuck in a zigzag position. The other arm had a lot of flesh missing near the shoulder. You could see the bones and what was behind them. The arm continued into an abnormally large forearm and hand. The forearm widened into a bulbous, near egg-like shape, followed by 3 razor-sharp claws. The thing lifted the couch effortlessly. I leaned in, most likely white as a ghost. What got me the most was its face. A huge chunk of its face appeared to have been ripped off. revealing a jagged jawbone and more veins, sticking out haphazardly. I couldn't stand the sight of it anymore. I moved back against the closet wall, quiet as a mouse. We cowered in there for what seemed like a year when I began hearing the shuffling growing louder, closer. The thing's presence manifested in a low buzz, almost like that of an oscillator, humming perpetually. I froze, slowly turning my head towards Mia, who appeared to be in a meditative state. Her neutral expression began to transition into rage. Mia calmly stood, facing the wardrobe door. "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" My mind repeated as Mia grabbed a small knife out of one of her pockets. I watched the shadow of the thing's hand move over the slits of the light shining on her face. Mia widened her stance, readying herself. The closet door ripped open. Mia wasted no time. The second the door opened, she darted forward, plunging the knife into the thing's stomach. The thing backed up and made a sound that will never leave my mind. It sounded like the scream of a small child, shrill, weak, furious. Mia held her hand out to me as the creature shrieked in agony, clutching its wound. Not wanting to risk what could happen if I didn't move, I took Mia's hand and we bolted out of that dang house. As we left the door, I heard the creature's anguished screams. We ducked behind a volvo in front of a neighboring house, stealthily watching as the creature clutched its stomach, growling in pain. "We need to get the heck out of here," I muttered under my breath. Mia patted my shoulder with the back of her hand. "The school." I was dumbstruck for a good second before she continued. "They talked all about the ritual. Maybe one of them talked about how to get out. Wrote it in a notebook somewhere." The idea clicked in my mind like a puzzle piece. I nodded. Right. Everyone always left their notebooks in folders at the school, only using their bags to carry more personal belongings and books. They always left their bags in the lockers assigned to them, so if we managed to look through enough notebooks, we would be able to find the way out of here. At least, I can only hope there's a way out. Our path to the school wasn't a difficult one. It was getting there that threw a wrench in our plans. We had to stay out of that dang thing's line of sight or God knows what would happen. We could hardly walk 50 feet without the thing patrolling by. Thankfully, the yards usually had several things to hide behind, like slides, trash cans, cars, etc. There was one street, however, one street that I never want to walk down again. Ulysses Avenue. Long before I was born, something happened on this street that caused the entire town to abandon it, leaving houses decayed to the point of it just being piles of rotten logs, yards devoid of anything short of grass and the occasional dandelion. The kids at school used to call it the Cursed Pass, and did it look the part. The atmosphere appeared to dim near it, scraps of burnt paper drifting through the air like embers in the wind. I considered going around, but Mia insisted. "We gotta get there as soon as possible if we want a better chance at making it out of here alive." So, begrudgingly, I followed her. Mia seemed too calm, her only sign of reaction being loosely crossing her arms. I was trembling. It was blisteringly cold in this specific street, and every step I took made me feel worse and worse. Don't get me wrong, I was petrified. But as we got closer to the center of the street, I felt more and more helpless, like my death was inevitable and approaching quickly. I felt hopeless. It was when we were about 75% through that I began to feel eyes on me. I could feel the thing looking at me, and after a few seconds of internally debating with myself, I finally mustered the strength to look at it. "Vivian." In front of me stood a timid boy, his blonde hair clashing against the silhouette of the cursed past had become. His clothes looked mangled, covered in rips and tears. It took me a second to process the fact that he knew my name, so I just stood there. He looked slightly to the left. "Mia?" It took a moment of thinking for me to figure it out, but once I connected the dots, it was uncanny. Dominic was a kid in my school who went missing within the first week. The few times that I talked to him, he seemed really kind and quiet, but always up for trying something new. The three of us took a moment to chat. With each other to lighten the mood a little, we left the cursed pass and continued on the path to school. We did have to duck out of the way a lot, but other than that, the walk wasn't so terrible. However, the whole time, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. After what felt like just 15 minutes, we came up to the school. It seemed more run down, almost like it stood more of a test of time than the rest of the town. The tan-painted bricks were riddled with cracks, some bricks missing altogether. The windows were mostly shattered, and the large steel doors were dented, almost like someone took a sledgehammer to the building. I was admiring the peculiarity of it all when Mia bumped me with her shoulder. "Come on, we're not getting out of here without finding the way." Mia took 2 small knives from her pockets before handing one to each of us. We both obliged, sheathing them in our pockets. I brushed at my hair with my hand, nodding at Dominic. Dominic let out a nervous breath, entering the building. As we entered the school, the mood completely changed. The school felt calmer, the LED lights echoing across the marble floor. I could feel a sense of true safety, something I could only ever feel when at school. Let me reiterate, my dad was an abusive alcoholic, and I had to deal with him from the moment I was born to when I was 11, when he died in a car accident. My family has been ashamed to share a last name with him ever since. Not even my dad's side of the family defended him. Even after he died, I never felt safe in my own home. The only time I ever really felt safe would be when I was at school, where I didn't have to worry about him. Mia tried to open up a locker, but it didn't budge. Mia sighed, turning towards us. "We'll need to get the locker combos from the office." I nodded. I had been taking the safety of the school for granted. I was so calmed by the atmosphere that I almost didn't notice a light go out at the end of the hallway that we had entered the building through, and then another. I watched in terror as each light that went out debilitated my sense of safety. Mia began to shake. Something about the way that she stood there, her stance widened and her eyes shaking with her body. Again, there was nothing that scared Mia, but here she was, petrified. I couldn't think. I don't think any of us could. Dominic shook his head, breaking out of his trance. In an urgent tone, Dominic shouted, "We've got to find a place to hide." Snapping out of our trances as well, we sprinted through the building. Mia and I had been inside the school for far longer than Dominic had, so we knew a better way around. I could hardly talk from my breath being torn to pieces from running. "Where do we go?" Mia looked up, a thoughtful expression lying on her face. "The library." "What?" Mia slowed her pace, and we did the same. "I found a hatch under the rug a few weeks ago. If we can find a way in there, I think we might find some kind of tunnel. Maybe some supplies. I'm not sure though." We followed her word, making our way through the corridors to the library, just before we heard the entrance to the school slam open. I heard the distress in Dominic's eyes as he began to plead. "Come on, come on, come on! This guy doesn't wait around." Not wasting a beat, Mia tried at the doorknob. It didn't move, not a millimeter, almost like it was glued onto the door, like it was carved from stone. What the heck?" The terror in Mia's voice cut through me like a dagger. I felt it too. Why would the library be closed off? Would it have been our only hope of escape? Dominic began to look around in a panic, cursing under his breath. Mia snapped her head towards us. "There's no time. We have to get those combinations or we're never getting out of here." As we neared the office, the floors of the building began to crumble, turning into the texture of gravel. The walls began to desaturate, transitioning into a darkened gray. The two of us came upon the office. The two of us. "Crap, Dominic!" Mia exclaimed in frustration. "You get him, I'll get the combinations." I nodded, hesitating for half a second before dashing back down the hallway. Screams began to fill the hall. I unsheathed my pocket knife, letting it trail behind me as I sped up. I turned a corner, and Dominic was on the floor. There was blood coming from his hands, the knife sitting about a meter away, stained crudely. I looked up and the thing was there, advancing on Dominic like a typical horror movie villain, slowly, coldly, imposing, freaking insidious. Adrenaline rushed through me as I picked up my speed. It was no use though. It was like the hallway was extending as I ran. Did you ever get one of those dreams where you try to run, but you can barely move? Or you're running towards something, but it always appears the same distance away? That's what was happening. And I could only watch in horror as the thing grabbed Dominic by the head, lifting him 6 feet off the ground. Tears began to stream behind him, shooting back at nearly the speed of light. The ground was moving with me, the walls and ceiling blurring from the speed. It was clear that I was moving. I just wasn't getting any closer. I watched Dominic scratch at the thing's horrifically disfigured hand. My ears picked up the sickening sound of bones violently crunching, muffled, gargling screams, my own screams, the sound of gravel crunching under my feet, the low hum of the creature's presence. I heard it all. I couldn't take any more of it. Squeezing my eyes tight shut, I hurled my knife at the thing, drifting to a full 180 and sprinting back to Mia to tell her to get the heck out of this place. I heard the knife cut into something, along with the creature's pained shrieks. I looked back to see the thing clutching its forehead. I was always a good throw. My short burst of self-confidence faded when I almost focused on the mangled, blood-splattered mess that used to be Dominic, which lied in my peripheral vision. My mind kicked back into gear, and my speed picked up, only this time I was actually getting somewhere. I returned to the office and Mia was waiting for me, donning a khaki knapsack. "Where's Dominic?" Without a word, I grabbed Mia's wrist, bashing through the window at full force, nearly destroying my shoulder in the process. Glass shards rained upon us as we sprinted from my house. I knew Mia could tell from the tears raining down my face that I had let Dominic die, and all I did was watch until it was too late. She saw me clutching my shoulder in agony and stopped me, wrapping an arm around me. I did the same and we continued. One house that we passed, Dominic's house, seemed to be engulfed in an inky black, only cutting the reminder deeper into my soul. A few houses later, we happened upon my own house, just as destroyed as Mia's. There we stayed for several weeks as I attempted to recover from my injuries. Surprisingly, the pantries were all lined with food that wouldn't expire for a long time. I realized that we could ransack some houses for seeds to plant, and that's just what we did. We developed makeshift methods of defending ourselves from that thing that had killed Dominic. And that's what we've been doing for the past couple years. We gave Dominic the closest thing we could manage to a proper memorial. Every couple of days, we would risk our lives going back to the school to bring back some notebooks to flip through. We knew the mastermind behind this legend was one of our peers, so if we find that person's notebook, we might be able to escape. In our time here, I managed to find a poor internet signal. God awful, but it's there. I can't figure out for the life of me, but my phone managed to survive this whole situation. They don't lie when they say these things are waterproof. So if you're out there, please know that we're okay. We might not make it out of here alive, but we've got each other. I hope to God that one day we can kill that thing, but nothing's worked so far. However, all it needs is a good poke and it'll back off. The house is reinforced and the harvest is bountiful, so it's safe to say that we've got a lot of time to find a way out of here. We're okay, and please, for the love of God, don't try to come get us. You'll be trapped here, and it's just gonna mess more people over if it turns out that there's no way out of this place. Mom, if you're reading this, I love you. I hope you're doing alright. Same for Mia's family, and Dominic's family. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I had to relive Dominic's death in such painstaking detail. It's probably going to be hard to get people to believe this, but if you can, try to get a proper funeral set up for Dominic. We did what we could, but he deserves a proper goodbye. Again, I can't stress this enough. We are okay. I'm gonna head to the place where there's internet so I can post this. Funny enough, it's on the bridge above where we arrived. I love you, Mom. Mia says hi.